investment. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. All right, today we're talking about something that comes up constantly in emails, comments, and private messages: investment, how to exchange Iraqi Dinar at Chase Bank, and what that process could realistically look like if and when it ever becomes possible. And before we go any further, investment. Quick disclaimer, this is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not giving any dates. I'm not giving any rates. Investment, and nothing in this video is a guarantee that any exchange event will occur. This is purely informational, speculative investment, and based on how real-world banking systems operate, you make your own decisions, you do your own research, and you protect yourself. Now, let's talk like normal people. Investment, calm, grounded, no hype, no panic, because I know a lot of you have been holding dinar for a long time. Some of you bought it years ago, some inherited it. Investment. Some picked it up during deployment, some just grabbed a little as a what-if scenario. Investment. And the big question isn't just if anything happens, it's what do you actually do if it does. And one bank name that always comes up is Chase. People ask, investment, will Chase exchange dinar? Can I walk into a branch? Do I need an appointment? Do I have to be a customer? Will they call me? Investment. So today we're going to walk through realistic scenarios, not fantasy ones. First thing you need to understand is how large U.S. investment. Banks operate when it comes to foreign currency. Chase is one of the largest financial institutions in the world. They handle international transactions every single day. Investment, corporate transfers, foreign exchange for businesses, international wires, global markets activity. So from an infrastructure standpoint, yes, investment. They absolutely have the capability to deal with foreign currencies, but capability and current policy are two different things. Right now, investment Iraqi Dinar is not widely traded through U.S. retail banking channels. That's just the reality. Investment. You can't walk into most branches today and exchange it like euros or Canadian dollars, but policies can change depending on international banking status. Investment. Regulatory guidance, liquidity, and market conditions. If a currency becomes fully tradable and recognized within the global banking system. Investment. Major banks are typically the gateway for exchange. Think of Chase as a massive pipeline connected to the international financial network. Investment. If something starts flowing through that network, they can handle it, but they don't control when or if the flow begins. Now let's imagine a realistic scenario, hypothetical. Investment. You wake up one morning and credible financial news outlets report that Iraq has implemented monetary changes that allow its currency to be internationally traded through banking systems. Investment, not rumors, not anonymous posts, but official sources, central bank statements, government confirmations, major financial media coverage. At that point, investment. Banks like Chase would receive internal guidance from headquarters, from regulatory bodies, from the Federal Reserve framework, from compliance departments. Investment. Branch employees wouldn't just improvise. This is something people misunderstand. Your local teller doesn't decide exchange policy. Large banks operate from the top down. Investment. Headquarters sets the rules, branches execute them. So if you walked into a random branch 5 minutes after news broke, the staff might not even know yet. Investment. Internal memos take time to circulate. Systems have to be updated. Procedures established. This is why patience would be critical. Investment. Another common misconception is that you would just show up with a stack of dinar and walk out with cash. For large value exchanges, that's extremely unlikely. Banks prefer deposits, wires, and documented transactions, not handing out huge amounts of physical currency. Security, compliance, and audit trails matter. More likely, investment, you would deposit funds into your account once the currency is verified and processed. And that brings us to an important point: authenticity verification. Investment. Foreign banknotes have to be checked for legitimacy. Counterfeit detection, condition assessment, series verification, especially for high denominations. Investment. Major banks have equipment and procedures for this, but it takes time. It's not instant like counting US dollars. So imagine scheduling an appointment. Investment. Bringing your notes in securely, presenting identification, possibly signing forms. Investment. And the bank sending the currency through verification channels before final settlement. Calm, structured, professional. Now let's talk about being a Chase customer. Investment. This matters more than people realize. Banks prioritize existing clients. If you already have accounts, history, and a relationship with the institution, investment. You're not a stranger walking in off the street. You're part of their system. That can affect how smoothly things move. If you're not a customer, investment. They may require you to open an account first before processing a large transaction. This is standard practice for many banks, not just Chase. Investment. Financial institutions want to know who they're doing business with, identity verification, anti-money laundering compliance, all of that. Investment. So one of the simplest preparation steps is having an established banking relationship, checking account, savings account, maybe online access already set up. Investment, nothing fancy, just established. Another thing people ask is whether certain branches would handle exchanges while others would not. Large banks often designate specific locations for complex transactions. Not every branch has the same capabilities. Some are retail-focused. Investment. Some handle business clients. Some have private banking services. If a significant exchange opportunity existed, investment, yeah, you might be directed to a larger regional branch or a financial center equipped for high-value transactions. Think about how not every hospital performs heart surgery. Investment. Same system, different capabilities. Appointments would almost certainly be required. Walk-ins might be turned away simply because processing takes time and preparation. Investment. Banks manage schedules, staffing, and security. They don't want crowds forming or sensitive transactions happening unpredictably. Investment. And here's something I want you to think about carefully. If anything major ever happened, phone lines at banks would light up immediately. Thousands of calls, questions, investment, rumors, confusion. So you might encounter busy signals, long hold times, or inconsistent answers early on. That doesn't mean anything is wrong. Investment. It means demand exceeded communication speed. Preparation reduces stress in that situation. If you already know your branch, know how to contact them, investment, and know basic procedures, you're ahead of the chaos. Now let's talk about documentation beyond ID. Depending on the size of the transaction, investment. Banks may ask questions about the source of funds, not because you did anything wrong, but because regulations require due diligence. Investment. Foreign currency holdings can trigger compliance review simply due to their unusual nature. So if you have purchase receipts, records, or any proof of acquisition, investment, keep them. Even old emails, invoices, or order confirmations can help establish legitimacy. Again, this is not normal financial compliance, not suspicion. Investment, let me give you a realistic example. Imagine someone purchased dinar years ago through a reputable dealer and kept the receipts in a file folder. Investment, when they present the currency at a bank, they can show documentation demonstrating when and how it was acquired. That smooths the process significantly. And compare that to someone who has no records and says, I just found this. That creates uncertainty, which slows everything down. Organization equals speed. Investment. Another topic that comes up constantly is exchange rates and special deals. Look, investment. Large banks don't operate on handshake agreements or secret backroom rates for walk-in customers. They use official pricing structures tied to market conditions, spreads, investment, and internal policies. If anything ever became tradable, rates would be published through financial systems, not whispered. And yes, banks make money on currency exchange. That's part of their business model. They don't run charity windows. Now let's shift to a human side of this conversation. Investment. I know some of you have built hopes around this for years. That emotional investment can make it hard to think clearly when new information appears. But the calm investment, methodical approach will always serve you better than rushing. You don't need to be first in line. You need to be smart in line. Even in a best case scenario, investment. Exchange windows would not close in 5 minutes. Financial systems don't operate like flash sales. They operate through controlled processes. So take a breath. Gather information, confirm legitimacy, schedule properly, move deliberately. And here's another practical tip, personal security. Investment. If you're transporting physical currency to a bank, do so discreetly. No announcements, no visible bags labeled. Money, no unnecessary stops. Investment. Treat it like any valuable asset. Low profile equals low risk. All right, guys, we've covered a lot already, how Chase operates, why customer relationships matter. Investment, why verification takes time, and what a realistic day of scenario might look like if exchange ever became possible. In the next part, investment, we're going to go deeper into things most people don't think about until it's too late. Private banking services, large deposit handling, taxes, security after exchange, investment, and strategic decisions that matter just as much as the exchange itself. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Investment. Let's keep this conversation moving and go deeper into. And again, quick reminder before we continue, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Investment. I'm not giving any dates. I'm not giving any rates, and nothing we're discussing is a guarantee that any exchange event will happen. investment. This is realistic scenario planning based on how major US banks like Chase actually operate. Now, in the first part, we talked about the structure, investment, how Chase functions as a top-down institution, why policies come from headquarters, why authenticity verification matters, investment, and why being an existing customer could make a difference. Now, let's go a layer deeper, investment. If Iraqi Dinar were ever to become internationally tradable through official banking channels, investment, there's a very strong chance that standard teller lines would not be the primary exchange point for anything significant. Instead, investment, larger transactions would likely move through what banks call private client or wealth management divisions. This is where a lot of people misunderstand how large banks operate. When deposits cross certain thresholds, especially sudden high-value deposits, investment, they trigger internal systems. Not because something is wrong, but because that's how risk management works. Banks monitor liquidity, compliance, investment, and regulatory reporting in real time. So imagine this hypothetical situation. You schedule an appointment at Chase after confirmed international tradability. Investment, you bring in your dinar, the currency is verified, let's say purely hypothetical, the exchange results in a substantial deposit. Investment, that deposit doesn't just quietly slide into your checking account unnoticed. It triggers internal review processes. Again, not panic procedure. Chase, investment, like all major banks, is regulated by federal authorities. Large currency exchanges fall under reporting requirements. Investment, the bank may file currency transaction reports or other required documentation. That's standard compliance. It doesn't mean you're in trouble. Investment, it means the system is doing what it was built to do. This is why emotional reactions can hurt you. If you walk in nervous, defensive, or argumentative about paperwork, investment, you make the situation harder than it needs to be. If you walk in calm, professional, organized, you move through the system much smoother. Investment. Now let's talk about private client services specifically. If someone were to deposit a significant amount, Chase might assign or offer a private banker. These are financial professionals inside the bank who manage high-value client relationships. They operate in quieter offices, not busy teller areas. Investment. They handle structured deposits, wire transfers, investment introductions, and liquidity planning. And here's something important. Investment, you don't have to already be ultra wealthy to be moved into that category. Sometimes a single qualifying deposit triggers eligibility. Investment. So instead of thinking, I'll just exchange and leave, think strategically. The bank may want to keep you as a long-term client. Investment. That means conversations about savings vehicles, investment options, insured accounts, or staggered deposit strategies. Investment. Now let's pivot slightly within and talk about timing and access. If an exchange opportunity ever opened up, there would likely be a rush of inquiries nationwide. Investment. Chase operates thousands of branches. Some will be better equipped than others. Some might be designated regional processing centers for foreign currency exchange. It's entirely possible that your local small branch would direct you to a larger financial center. That's not a rejection. That's logistics. Investment. Banks don't store unlimited foreign currency liquidity in every location. They coordinate through centralized systems. So you might be told, investment, we can process this at our downtown financial center, or you'll need to schedule at a designated branch. Preparation helps here too. Investment. Know where your nearest large Chase financial center is, not because anything is happening, but because knowing your options reduces stress. Investment. Now let's address another major topic people ask about constantly. Will Chase give cash or deposit only? For any substantial amount, deposit is the realistic expectation. Large sums of physical US cash are not something banks casually hand across a counter. There are vault limits. Investment. Insurance considerations and security protocols. More likely funds would be deposited electronically into your account. From there, you can transfer, wire investment, or allocate as needed. Which brings us to an important psychological moment. When funds hit an account, especially unexpectedly, there's the emotional urge to move quickly can be overwhelming. Big purchases, big transfers, big announcements. Slow down. Investment. Banks sometimes place temporary holds on unusually large deposits until full verification and settlement occur. That's normal liquidity management. Investment. So if you're thinking you'll exchange in the morning and close on a mansion in the afternoon, that's unrealistic. Give the system time to clear. Investment. Now let's talk about taxes. I'm not giving tax advice here. That's for licensed professionals, but any potential gain from foreign currency transactions in the US, investment, may have tax implications. How it's classified depends on multiple factors: purchase records, holding period, transaction structure. investment. This is why documentation matters so much. If you have proof of purchase showing when and at what price you acquired your dinar, that establishes cost basis. Without it, investment, calculating gains, becomes more complicated. So before anything ever happens, gather your records, digital copies, printed copies, organized folder, investment. Because when things move fast, the last thing you want is scrambling for paperwork. Now let's talk about security outside the bank. Investment. Transporting currency to a branch should be discreet. No social media posts, no telling neighbors, no broadcasting your appointment. Keep it simple and private. Investment. After exchange, if it ever occurs, privacy becomes even more important. Large sudden wealth can change how people treat you. The fewer people who know investment, the safer and calmer your life remains. Another topic within that needs to be addressed is scams. Whenever there's speculation about currency changes, scammers show up. Priority lists, guaranteed early access, insider rates. Investment. Large banks like Chase do not operate through random phone calls or private invitations. Official communication comes through official channels. Investment. If someone claims they can get you a special rate at Chase for a fee, walk away. Financial institutions do not need middlemen. Investment. Let's also discuss realistic expectations about exchange spreads. Banks earn money through the difference between buy and sell rates. That's how foreign exchange works. Investment. So if something ever becomes tradable, understand there may be spreads or fees built into the rate. It won't be identical to a raw interbank number you see online. Investment. That's normal. Now, I want to talk to you directly for a moment. If you've been holding dinar for years, you've probably gone through emotional cycles. Excitement, investment disappointment, renewed optimism. That emotional history can cloud judgment. But when it comes to something like exchanging at Chase, calm logic wins. Investment, you don't need to be first. You need to be prepared. You don't need rumors. You need confirmation. You don't need hype. You need structure. And remember this of extent, large banks do not move based on internet chatter. They move based on regulatory clearance and official international banking recognition. If those things don't exist, the exchange doesn't exist, at least not through legitimate channels. All right, guys, we've now covered private banking possibilities, deposit handling, investment compliance procedures, tax considerations, security, and realistic expectations when dealing with a major institution like Chase. In the next part, investment, we're going to go even deeper into strategy, what to do immediately after exchange, how to think about wealth preservation, investment, managing relationships with the bank long term, and avoiding the most common post-exchange mistakes. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Investment. Let's wrap this up and bring everything together for. And as always, quick disclaimer, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Investment. I'm not giving any dates, I'm not giving any rates, and nothing we've discussed is a guarantee of anything happening. This is all about realistic preparation, investment, understanding how a major bank like Chase would operate, and putting yourself in the calmest, strongest position possible if circumstances ever changed. Investment. Now we've already talked about how Chase functions structurally, why policies come from headquarters, how verification and compliance work, investment, why large deposits may move into private banking channels, and why documentation, security, and patience matter, investment. So now let's talk about what most people never think about until it's too late, what happens immediately after an exchange, investment. Because exchanging currency is not the finish line, it's the starting line of a completely different phase. Let's imagine a realistic scenario, investment. You've scheduled your appointment, your dinar has been authenticated, processed, and funds are deposited into your Chase account. Investment. Maybe it's more than you've ever seen in your account before. Maybe it's life-changing, maybe it's modest but meaningful. Either way, your brain is going to go into overdrive. Adrenaline, excitement, relief, disbelief, all at once. This is where discipline becomes your superpower. The smartest move in that moment is do nothing immediately. Let the funds sit, let the transaction fully settle, let any holds clear, let your mind calm down. Vest and large financial decisions made under emotional pressure often lead to regret. Chase may even suggest this themselves. Banks prefer stability, investment, not sudden massive withdrawals or erratic transfers right after a large deposit. Now let's talk about insured accounts because this matters. Investment, standard FDIC insurance covers up to certain limits per depositor, per bank, per ownership category. If funds exceed those limits, the bank can structure accounts, investment sometimes across multiple ownership categories or instruments to maintain coverage. Investment. This is something a private banker or financial advisor at the bank can explain in detail. Again, not advice, just how the system works. Investment. Another major consideration is liquidity versus accessibility. Investment. Just because money is in your account doesn't mean it's wise to move it all into long-term investments immediately. Many people benefit from keeping a portion liquid. Investment. Easily accessible while planning longer-term strategies. Now let's shift to something even more important, building a professional team. Investment. If someone suddenly finds themselves managing significant funds, they shouldn't do it alone. A CPA, a tax attorney, investment, and possibly a fiduciary financial planner can provide guidance tailored to your situation. Chase may offer referrals, but you're not obligated to use in-house services. Investment. Independent professionals are always an option. This is about informed decisions, not pressure. And yes, taxes will almost certainly become part of the conversation. Investment. Not because anything is wrong, but because the U.S. tax system applies to gains from many types of transactions. The exact treatment depends on individual circumstances, invest, records, and applicable law at the time. So again, documentation saves headaches. Now let's pivot slightly within and talk about lifestyle changes. Investment. One of the biggest mistakes people make after sudden financial gain is announcing it, posting online, telling distant acquaintances. Investment. Making dramatic, visible upgrades overnight. Attention is not your friend in that situation. Privacy equals safety, both financially and personally. Investment. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need to justify your decisions. Quiet stability beats loud celebration every time. Let me give you a grounded example. Investment. Imagine two people receive the same large deposit. One immediately buys luxury vehicles, posts photos, tells everyone they know, and starts making large loans to friends and relatives. The other upgrades gradually, consults professionals, invests carefully, and maintains privacy. 5 years later, investment. The outcomes are often very different. Wealth preservation is not about flashy moves. It's about sustainable ones. Investment. Now let's talk about your relationship with Chase after an exchange. If you become a high-value client, the bank may offer additional services. Investment. Enhanced security features, dedicated support lines, investment platforms, estate planning introductions. These can be useful, but remember, you are always in control. Investment. You can accept or decline services. Banks are businesses. They aim to retain clients. You should aim to make the best decisions for your long-term stability. Another overlooked factor is digital security. Large balances make accounts more attractive targets for cybercrime. Strong passwords, two-factor authentication, account alerts, and cautious online behavior become even more important. Never share account details, never click suspicious links. Investment, and always verify communications directly through official channels. Now I want to address something emotional that doesn't get talked about enough: identity shift. Investment. If someone's financial situation changes dramatically, their sense of self can change too. Relationships may feel different. Priorities may shift. That's normal. Investment. But grounding yourself in routines, values, and trusted people helps maintain stability. Money solves some problems. Investment also introduces new ones if not managed thoughtfully. Let's also circle back to the idea of special exchange deals, because even after a transaction, scammers can appear claiming to help you maximize funds, unlock hidden opportunities, or move money offshore safely. Be extremely cautious. Investment. If a proposal sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Legitimate opportunities come with documentation, transparency, and professional oversight. Investment, not pressure and secrecy. Now I want to speak directly to long-time dinar holders watching this. You've likely endured years of speculation, rumors, predictions, investment, and disappointment cycles. That history can make it hard to believe anything until it actually happens. And honestly, that skepticism can be healthy. Investment. But if you've stayed grounded, kept your currency safe, and avoided reckless decisions, you've already done the hardest part: patience. Investment. Preparation is simply the final layer. And for newer viewers, maybe you're just learning about all this, understand that speculation is not certainty. Investment. Owning a currency is not a guaranteed path to wealth. It's a position with potential upside and real uncertainty. Investment. Responsible expectations protect you from emotional extremes. So where does all this leave us regarding exchanging Iraqi dinar at Chase? Investment. It comes down to a few calm truths. If the currency is not internationally tradable through official banking channels, a major bank will not exchange it. If it becomes tradable, major banks like Chase have the infrastructure to process exchanges under regulated procedures. The experience would likely involve appointments, verification deposits, compliance documentation, and professional handling, not chaotic walk-in cash transactions. Investment. And what you do afterward matters more than the exchange itself. Stay calm, stay pro-organized, build a plan before making big moves. Control emotions, investment, not just finances. At the end of the day, you cannot control global economic events, central bank decisions, or geopolitical developments. Investment, but you can control your readiness, your mindset, and your decision-making process, and that's real power. All right, guys, that completes this deep dive on stay smart, investment, stay grounded, and remember, preparation beats panic every time. I'll see you in the next one.